So today I want to talk about what is correct and how to siege correctly. What am I doing? I go off script so fucking fast. Sieging correctly in solo queue is one of the hardest things you can do in League of Legends because it requires everyone to be on the same page about what is correct. And we absolutely love to disagree about that. Trying to tell your team to do anything can often feel like herding cats or other less charitable nouns. Are you supposed to take all the outers before you take an inner turret? Why is it bad to take an inhibitor before 20 minutes? Usually. How do you make the most out of a Baron power play? These questions and more I want to answer today, hopefully with some fun animations if I can figure out how to do that, because I know it's just so frustrating, and we've all been there, to try and close out a game when everyone disagrees about how to do that. And no, I don't think voice chat would solve this problem, so don't even start. Even 5-man pre-mades in Discord voice chat, you're going to disagree about your team's win cons or you're going to fumble sieges if you're not all on the same page. We know it can be so frustrating to try and close out a game when everyone thinks they're doing the right thing, but we're all doing different things. Looking at the game more holistically can and will help you throw less and close out games more effectively. So today I want to take a look at how to siege in League of Legends. Hi, I'm Robin, and this is another entry in the League Encyclopedia. Today we're talking about sieging, and to start, let's take a look at some numbers I'll be referencing throughout the video to illustrate why some things are the way they are. So first, let's look at towers. I did a breakdown of all structures years ago, and it's 100% out of date, and you definitely shouldn't go watch that. So I made a new image here for quick reference. And the big thing I want to stress here is that the outer tier 2 turrets are worth 800 gold, while the mid lane one is only worth 550. And that's total gold, by the way. Everything you're seeing here is total gold, total team gold. It includes local and global gold. The next thing to get straight is minion experience. So I've made another quick image here for reference. Obviously, we see that inhibitor and cannon minions are worth the exact same, so I've bunched them together. They're going to be followed by melees, of course, and then casters giving the last final bit of experience. This means that a whole wave of solo XP is worth about 650. Now compare that to getting a solo kill, which is a huge XP boon, but only worth more than a full cannon/inhib wave after level 12. The last thing I want to quickly highlight, even though it doesn't really relate to the video super relevantly, is Baron's experience. We all know how much gold it gives, right? 300 per person, 1500 team gold, but no one really talks about the experience it gives, and it's 600 per person, plus 800 shared among everybody who's nearby when it dies. So that's 3,800 experience in total for taking down Baron. So now that we're all on the same page about the facts and figures, I want to start answering some of those questions I asked at the beginning of the video, starting with why it's bad to take an inhibitor before 20 minutes usually. Now maybe it's already become obvious to you from just looking at the numbers, but the reason is it provides your opponents with a disproportionate amount of resource income compared to you. Between 15 and 25 minutes, there's a cannon wave only every other wave. Put another way, the average gold per wave is close to 150, while the average inhibitor wave is closer to 195. Actually, it's exactly 195. On the experience side, a cannon is worth the same as an inhibitor minion. So every other wave, you are effectively losing out 95 experience while your opponent is gaining that 95 experience. All of this is assuming that you're even able to catch those waves. I mean, inhibitor waves are designed to push, and if your opponent is smart and able to freeze the wave inside their base, that means you could be hemorrhaging up to 300 experience every 30 seconds for 5 minutes straight. The big caveat to this entire point, of course, is that if you're in a position to close out the game shortly after taking the inhibitor, then it's fine. Like, let's say you're ready to take the Nexus by using the Rift Herald, or maybe it's really close to 20 minutes and you're about to take Baron and then storm down mid again to end. Like, it's fine. It's not a hard rule. It's just why it's usually bad. The takeaway really should be that it's not always correct to take an inhibitor down. Just because it's left unattended, just because you can, doesn't mean it's correct. Next, I want to talk about the proper order in which you should be taking turrets down. Now, of course, League is a game with complex lines of play. Everything changes constantly, but this is sort of the general idea about how you should be taking turrets down, at least the order. I am talking about this in the context of sieging and not laning phase, since that's kind of the theme of the video, and I'm going to assume that turret plates are down. So why do I have bot outer as the highest priority target? Well, because in the early to mid game, the key objective to fight over is Dragon. And because taking bot tower unlocks your ADC and support to move to mid while accelerating their gold income, and it allows you to push that wave further back, which applies even more pressure. After that, the outer top lane turret should be looked at, because you want to lengthen that lane to give you more room to get vision and apply pressure. Plus, mid tower can be harder to siege without overloading the lane, and giving your opponents a chance to make a cross-map play. Once top and bot are down, taking mid just becomes so much easier. because now you can approach it from so many angles. Holding mid tower becomes a dangerous prospect. Honestly, mid tower, since the map changes, has just lost a lot of its like strategic relevance. Like, it's still really good. It's a holdout, of course, but there's so many new angles that you can approach dragon and baron pits from that it's just kind of gotten a little bit less prio. While it's not strictly necessary to take all of the outer turrets before moving on to inners, it certainly helps, of course. I'm not going to say otherwise. But of course, if you have a window to take an inner turret before mid as outer is done, like, go for it, of course. They are just so insanely valuable. At least top and bot lane are. And that's kind of what I want to stress. Top should be prioritized just slightly over bot, because at this point in the game you're likely fighting over Baron pit vision and you want to be able to apply as much pressure as you can in that lane. But a pitfall I see so many players fall into is trying to pressure down mid tier 2 before the outers are gone. Not only is it worth far less gold, it's also just so much harder to siege than the other tier 2s. Especially if the other tier 2s aren't down yet. Like, you've got almost no ways to wrap around and threaten a dive because of walls here and here. The paths you'd need to take to approach from behind would take so long and be so telegraphed it's pretty much never worth it. The more correct play is to crash a wave, or a double stacked wave, even better, into that mid tier 2 and then rotate up or down and siege a tier 2 there while you have that window of pressure mid. Now, why do I have the mid tier 2 on the same priority as the bot and top inhib turrets? Well, they're worth about the same gold, 500 instead of 550, and in most instances are probably even easier to siege down. Here I want to quickly remind you that I'm talking about this from a team perspective, right? Because sieging at the end of the day is a team activity, and you can't really do it alone. But if you have the team on the same page, then sieging a tier 3 bot lane turret can often force your opponents into making unforced errors. Or actually, in this case, they would be forced errors. Not to mention that it's just much safer than trying to crack mid lane. You only need like 2 wards to spot out any possible flank angle here and here, and you can protect your damage dealers from other threats since there's so few lines of counterattack for your opponents. And again, this is why I see mid tier 2 as a skill check pitfall that so many players fall into. They zero in on needing to take all tier 2s before moving on to tier 3s, and that's just not the optimal way to play the game. After the tier 3s are down, take mid finally. I don't really know that I need to finish the segment, but take mid finally, and then take top or bot inhib, and then pressure the opposite side of the map. This is another pitfall I see too many players fall into too often. The whole point of taking an inhibitor is that that lane now pushes on its own. It is a free point of pressure for the next 5 minutes, and players should not be hanging out in lanes where inhibitors are down. You should be going to the opposite side of the map so that your opponent has to rotate over to answer you, and that it takes the maximum amount of time for them to do so. This is why mid inhib is usually not a game ender actually. It's a ticket to a Baron usually, and then you can storm down mid and end the game if you're ahead far enough. But generally, it is not a game ender because your opponents can easily rotate top or bot where you are likely to apply other pressure next. Now, of course, Baron makes all of these maneuvers way easier, and so I finally want to talk about how to make the most out of a Baron power play. Well, the simple answer, of course, is just siege correctly, but that's why we're here, right? So there's more to it. A Baron power play starts you off at 300 gold per person, or a 1500 gold team advantage. And the goal during that 3-minute window is to maximize your relative gold income. Yes, it does empower your minions, and it can be used to end games, but locking yourself into a frame of mind where Baron is a tool to end games will hold you back from thinking of it as a way to accelerate your gold income lead, mostly. Outside of taking high value turrets, the next best thing you can do is start taking enemy jungle camps. And this is true even if you don't have Baron, right? This is just how to siege correctly. By taking the enemy Gromp, let's say, you are getting about 80 gold and around 180 experience. But since it's the enemy's Gromp, you're actually also denying them that 80 gold and that 180 experience. So you're actually up 160 gold and 360 experience now. And that's the core idea behind stretching your gold lead during a siege. Yes, turrets matter, but on your way out, always make sure to leave time to take enemy jungle camps. That's how you really maximize your siege. So far I focused on the easy things about sieging and the things that your team is generally going to agree with you on what is the correct thing to do. Now let's talk about some of the harder things like syncing waves and rotating together. Syncing up waves is something that all but the best pro teams struggle to do consistently together, so do not start flaming your teammates for not doing it with you. It is a happy accident at best in solo queue, and it almost never happens deliberately. So it's exactly what it sounds like. You want to sync up when you are pushing your wave in with your teammate in a different lane, right? This is most often effective with Baron. And the idea is that as your wave is crashing, your teammate is also crashing that wave at the same time, and therefore your opponents have to choose between losing resources in one location or coming to defend your overall siege as a 5-man. It's similar in principle to the idea behind split pushing, except in this case, your team is rotating over to the person crashing the wave that has been synced up, rather than the lone team member joining the team. Lastly, I want to talk about grouping and rotating together, because the number one way to kill a siege is to take out a straggler. Being down a full team member, even if it's just the support, has huge implications for your ability to siege effectively. Part of sieging correctly is just grouping and staying grouped, so that nobody gets caught out. Push the waves together, take jungle camps together, walk away together. I'm going to say that again. Walk away together. Sometimes a risky path, if walked together, is better than a safer path walked alone. Okay, yikes, another long one. Let's wrap this up. In conclusion, here's a tier list for the order in which you should be taking turrets and their respective gold values. Don't take inhibs before 20 minutes unless you're ready to end the game in 5 minutes or less. Take jungle camps every time you're sieging. It's the number one way to maximize gold income. And most importantly, be flexible in what you think is correct in the moment, because League is a game with so many factors that are constantly changing, and what you thought was correct a moment ago may no longer be correct. Anyway, that's all I had for today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. And if you disagree with anything I had to say, or you have a comment otherwise, please do let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Subscribe if you haven't already to see more videos like this one. Hit that like button if you like the sort of more numbers-based analysis type video, and like ring the bell or whatever. Thank you so much for watching. This has been another entry in the League Encyclopedia.